up.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Photopedia. I hope all of you are having a great evening. And today we have with us Geeshan Bandara. He is a photojournalist based out of Sri Lanka. Hey Geeshan, how are you?
Hey Priya, I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We are doing great as well. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time. So just let me quickly introduce you and then you can take it ahead from there. So Jishan, you're a wedding photojournalist based out of Sri Lanka. And it says on your website that your biggest reward is to discover a couple in love that trusts you to narrate their day. That's an amazing line, man. I need to steal that.
Thank you.
And you've won a couple of awards, more than a couple of some five fearless, four reportage. Reportage is a very huge one, I would say. ISPW, PWPC. And your style is more of documentary wedding photography style, I believe.
Yes, primarily my focus is documentary wedding photography. Obviously, we do a little bit of staging. It's difficult to get 100% documentary weddings. Very rare. We have gotten a few here and there, but it's about 90%.
Perfect. So I would give the dice to you and let you take it from there.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I'm saying I would let you take it ahead from here.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me here, first of all. It's great to be a part of the community, and I love to connect with photographers around the world and everyone that I've spoken to. You guys, you all been so welcoming. So it's a pleasure to be here. A little bit about myself. So some of this might be a similar story, but how I got into it is. I was that kid in the basement who was always looking at all the old photo albums. No one else cared about any of that stuff except me. So it was, my brother, my mom, no one else cared about that. And, I remember these really thick albums with, the photos being pasted, films covering it, like the sepia tones and some of those old pictures takes me back to when you see that the 70s hair, the bell bottoms, all that stuff. And I remember one particular picture, right, of my dad washing his gray 1982 gray Toyota Celica. It was a sports car, and it was fascinating to me because it told me the story of a man that I didn't know. So my dad is like a very typical, responsible South Asian family man. The idea of him driving around in this sexy sports car just completely blew my mind. So I realized that with photos, you were getting this raw truth, and that was so fascinating to me. And looking through the pictures, I realized there was so much more to people around me than I realized. So fast forward, I was working for an IT job in Vancouver General Hospital. I was doing a lot of graveyard shifts. I was feeling aimless and drifting, and I knew that I wanted to be doing something with my life that would give it purpose. So photography was an avenue that I was exploring. And one particular, like really tiring day after graveyard shift, I came across a TED talk by a photojournalist called James Naquay. And for those of you who don't know, he's an award-winning war photographer. I really suggest that if you're into that, you look him up. Some of his like really iconic work was covering the Rwanda, Sudan, and so many other things. And his key message, left an imprint on me. It was that where certain things can lie, photos can tell the truth, and his photos were endeavoring to tell that truth. And I really took that to heart. And this was so far from the life that I was living, doing an IT job in Vancouver, that it became my single-minded obsession to be a war photographer initially. That was like early in 2008. And then quickly I realized that you will probably either die of starvation or die in the line of fire. So I got I was in that situation where friends and family were saying, can you take my picture, do some photos here and there, and I'm sure that's familiar. One day I got a call from a friend who asked me to cover her wedding. So I used all the training that I had, everything that I know, and applied my knowledge of uh, uh, documentary wedding photography uh, in shooting that wedding, and that kind of changed everything for me. I mean, jumping back a bit, basically the TED Talk actually inspired me to do some training, and I did a degree in photojournalism. So I was really invested in this path and going to be an actual war photographer at that time. So I realized that weddings themselves are a war zone. There's so many things that are going on. There's all kinds of chaos, and you have to be quick. You have to react quickly. You have to know your settings and everything inside out, in able to be able to capture that, right?
Agreed.
Right.
So that's essentially how I started, and you know, I've gained quite a bit of experience since then, and I came to a point where I had to decide, right? Like there was a lot of photography that was very um, like we call them lollipop weddings, which are very like very light and airy, and you've probably seen them. They're very scripted. They look nice, and a lot of people love them, but it really wasn't for me. I had to decide, and do I compromise on my style and what I want to do, and or do I shoot for a wider audience? But ultimately I could never do it, and the actual thought of that just made me feel sick. So it had its challenges initially, and a lot of people were um a little bit slow to understand it, but more and more people started um, becoming interested, getting interested in the documentary wedding photography aspect, and it was very rewarding. It was very challenging. Right now I'm in a great place where I get to travel all over the world. I get to meet some of the most interesting people, and I absolutely love what I do. More than anything else, and uh, I'm in this place right now where I'm always learning and looking to improve, and I feel like you can actually you can always keep learning, you can always keep improving. So that's one of my mantras and my mottos is there's always something that you can do to improve at any given time.
True.
So
Agreed.
that's basically the maybe not so brief intro about how I got to where I am today.
Right.
That's really interesting. That's really nice.
Okay. So, moving ahead to the today's, like, we are starting with the decisive movement, creating a decisive movement. So, more about that, you know how you would like to, what are you planning to do today, the today's agenda for this Zoom call? What are you gonna tell your viewers about it? Something about that.
So the first thing I wanted to talk about was uh, getting that decisive moment. So there are key moments where timing and sometimes luck, and there's so many things that are a factor in getting what I think is that perfect moment where a split second before or after, and you would not have that shot.
Right.
So these are the tools that I use, and these are some of the things that have helped me achieve that and helped me get that.
Perfect. Okay. So,
So I thought I could go through some of the pictures, and that will help explain.
definitely. So, Share?
Yes, please. So before I get into this picture, what I wanted to talk about was when
Once
you're
again,
getting that.
Jishan,
Sorry.
once again, just, uh, yeah, now.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So the thing about getting those moments, and this is a question that has been asked of me, which is why I wanted to talk about it. First of all, the biggest thing I can tell you is patience. You have to have an unbelievable amount of patience when you're a wedding photographer, and when you're a documentary wedding photographer, when you're waiting for those moments. I think you guys can relate to that. Having seen your work, you have there's so much going on. You have to be you might be crouched down somewhere, you might be in a very uncomfortable position, and you might be tempted to move, but there have been, for every good shot that I have, I'm sure there have been many failed shots, because I chose that moment to move, or I chose that moment to maybe do something else or look elsewhere. So patience is probably the biggest thing. The other thing is observation, always keeping your eyes open and looking at what's going on. So when the ceremony is happening, all eyes are focused on what's happening right there. But that's not the only thing that's going on throughout the wedding. Obviously, I think we are all shooting with other photographers. So we have second shooters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe two, three others, depending on the type of wedding. So here in Sri Lanka, most of our weddings are in the range of about 200 to 50 people, and I will typically shoot with one other person, sometimes maybe a third person. It depends. So uh, you know, you have one person covering the ceremony, but you have to look around and be able to get everything else that's going on. You have to be able to observe. You have to almost have eyes everywhere. And the other thing is anticipation and experience, and those things go in hand. So having shot more weddings, the more experience you have, the more you will be able to get these shots, because you know what's going to happen, and you can anticipate and you can plan a couple of steps ahead. So you know this is going to happen. You can wait for this and get this shot. So jumping into this photo right here, this is a traditional Sri Lankan wedding, and is the image showing right now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is a traditional Sri Lankan wedding called a Poro ceremony. So
Okay.
the Poro ceremony is it's actually an exchange. It's basically a land deal, if you to put it simply. So the guy's side marries the girl's side, and the girl's side gives a piece of land. But there's all these other small little intricate rituals and things involved. And one of the things that's happening here is the couple is standing in the on a small altar or a stage, an elevated platform, and the person who is conducting the ceremony is pouring basically the equivalent of holy water. It's blessed water. So it's meant to signify a lot of things, and they don't always hold this right in front of the couple. It's a bit unpredictable. Like when they do this, they will. It might be right close to them. He might be standing and he might be blocking them. So when I was getting this shot, I saw him come to the front, and he was pouring this out. And at this point, everyone is pretty emotional. So the mother is crying, the bride's crying, her side of the family, sister, everyone's typically very emotional at this stage. So I I anticipated that this was going to happen. He was going to pour this right in front of them, and I wanted to get this shot. I've been waiting for it for some time. I've always been trying to get this, and it lined up, and it looks like a teardrop.
Right.
So
It does.
that that was, I think, probably after many different times of trying it, where I got this shot, because maybe at other weddings it didn't quite line up. It didn't work out. The positioning was not right. He moved too quickly. So knowing it was going to happen, I quickly jumped right in front to get that. So that was, I would say, purely from experience and then anticipating that moment. So let me jump into the next picture as an example, right? So this is a typical Sri Lankan fire dancer. So this is not really part of anything. There's no religious ceremony, anything involved. This is just purely entertainment. And these guys come and they do an amazing performance. And seeing the crowd, I knew that I wanted to get this shot with the crowd in the background and the fire dancer blowing the flames out. So I I anticipated that he would come right into my frame right about this point, and I had my assistant lighting the couple because I wanted them to be the focus. And if you can see, I was rewarded with getting up close to him and getting that shot where I got the expressions from the couple that I wanted,
Right.
and them being just in complete shock because most of them have not seen this before. So when they see it for the first time, it's, they're completely awestruck.
Right. Agreed. So anticipation is one of the very important aspects, I would say.
Yes, anticipating that moment, knowing that, anticipating that he will walk into this, and it doesn't always work. Sometimes you can be wrong because you don't know unless it's scripted and he's told you before. You don't know his movements. You don't know if he's going to walk in that direction. You don't know if he's going to do something else. But again, that's where some of the experience comes in handy because you know that, like, at this point I know he's going to, what he's doing is he's putting like kerosene in his mouth, and he's spitting it out and lighting it.
Right.
So there's a ball of fire that just goes out like that.
Shall we move to the next image?
Yes, this image, there's a lot of dance floor shots that we love to get. Obviously, it's one of the most fun things to shoot. And for this one, it was a particularly energetic crowd. They were like partying like crazy. It was, celebration over the top. And all of a sudden, I see one guy take his tie off, and I've seen that enough. I know that the limbo is going to happen, right? And this guy is really tall. He's really tall, actually, and they're holding this down quite low.
Right.
So I'm seeing that this guy he's gonna fall back. Maybe he's gonna fall back, and someone is reaching out to him just at that moment. And actually, I had to kind of pre-focus and hold the camera above my head to get that shot.
Oh,
And
okay.
so he's surrounded by people, the crowd. So I had to actually reach over the crowd and get that shot. And then I have one other person from the opposite direction giving me some light. So this one also, it's knowing that he's going to do that, and just, if I hadn't been looking around and observing that the tie is coming off, the limbo is going to start, I would have missed that.
Sure. That's a nice shot, though.
Yeah.
Again, you were able to anticipate all this. That's great.
Yes, I was able to anticipate because I can see that he's going to fall back and people are going to try and help him. So I can see the hand. Like for me, what makes it is the hand reaching out and like trying to pull him in.
Right.
Did he actually fail?
He didn't fall. He didn't fall actually. He made it.
Oh, that's cute.
That's a cute one.
Yeah, this was really fun because how this is actually the last person in the crowd. So they're all facing towards the ceremony, right? And I'm taking pictures of the ceremony, and from the corner of my eye, I see this movement, and now I'm now trained myself to anything happening in my peripherals. I have to pay attention and see what's going on. So I see the daughter like reaching out to the dad, and she was at this point, and before this she was like pulling his hair, she was disturbing him, and everyone was nearby, they were having a little bit of a chuckle, they were laughing. I took a few pictures, and I just went back to what I was shooting over there. And then all of a sudden, I heard the dad, like I heard him exclaim or make a noise because she is like pulling at his face. And I turned and I got this moment. It was, for me, it was perfect because he was actually so patient, letting her do whatever she wants. And I that was just reaction. That was just being quick and reacting because I heard the sound and because I had this idea of something going on my periphery.
Nice.
So
Let's move on to the next. Oh, again, interesting.
so this one is one of my. I'm always a bit of a sucker for these types of images because I always find them very amusing. The idea that someone, a character in TV, is reacting to the person outside the TV, right?
Right.
So she was. I spent, I think, probably. I must have had about 100 shots
Oh.
in this frame, trying to get this one, because there were so many different things happening, so many different moments happening in the TV. It was some cartoon. So there was one with three lions, and then there was this guy, and there was so many things. And she was not in the right place. She was facing the other way, and she was. It just wasn't working for me. But somehow I'm very stubborn in that way. So the slower it takes or the longer it takes for me to get that shot, I'm thinking, no, I have to get this. I'm gonna get this somehow, and I have a very stubborn nature in that way. No matter what, I'm gonna get this. So I was waiting, and fortunately, this is the getting ready stage, and I have had the luxury of getting the other stuff that I want to. But I'm not going in. I'm not influencing anything in the scene. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm just capturing the action as it happens. And finally, my patience here was rewarded in getting the shot that I wanted.
So how often do you get these sort of shots? Like, is it like you are able to see these things instantly, or
I would say before I was not able to, and that's something that you can develop over time to look for, because now I've noticed a lot more where um, something happening in the background, and somehow, like, say, using the TV as an example, the bride is getting ready near the TV, something comes on, and I mean, it can be, it can be relevant to the scene, it can be not relevant, but sometimes something happens where it's really funny. So I am always looking out for those now.
next image?
I think, sorry, to continue, I think before, like, I would say when I started out, and that's why experience is important, is I was so focused on making sure I had so many shots of the prep that I was missing the other stuff.
Hmm.
I was missing, like, it's basically like, when you're a racehorse, you have the blinders on, right? So that you don't get distracted.
Right.
I mean, not getting distracted is a good thing, but in a way, I feel like now having, shot so many weddings and, learned from other photographers, that now I can actually see better.
That's nice.
So, okay, one thing we all know, and not that we know, but maybe sometimes we forget, is that kids can be very entertaining at weddings, right? Um, Now, from experience, I know, especially, so there's a couple of things coming into play here. Is one is it's a church wedding.
Hmm.
It's very hot. There's no air conditioning, and it's hot and humid in Sri Lanka. So I know that the kids get tired by this point. So I know that they're going to fall asleep. They're going to get grumpy. I know that there's something happening. I know that something's going to happen at this point. So while the main ceremony is going on, I have my eye on things that are going on the side. So luckily over here, I had not only the little girl who was yawning. I had one of the bridesmaids on the left who was falling asleep, and then the brother on the right who was trying to keep himself awake. So that that is because I would say, again, knowing that, uh, just from experience, knowing that kids are going to fall asleep, knowing that they're going to be tired, like they're not going to be able to keep up. So that's pretty much what that is. So this one was, again, um, I would say it started with some luck. I'm not gonna lie. There's definitely luck involved. But then one of the things I learned, I think Priyam can relate,
Yeah,
when we were
I was
too,
going.
is how to make your own luck, is what
Yes,
they say,
I was
right?
going to come to that.
Yeah, how to make your own luck. So earlier when I was taking the photos here, I noticed the flames dancing around, and I was actually on my, I think I was on my and I liked it. I was playing around with it. The ceremony was going on, and I I saw what I had in my 1635, and I thought I wanted that compression, and I wanted to be able to isolate the couple. So I switched to, I think, my 85. I took a few steps back, and I was shooting, and I noticed the flames dancing around, and uh, this one particular photo where the flames just happened to be going around his head, where it looks like he has a crown of fire. So I think that is, having seen that before, and then saying, okay, how do I make this? How do I create my own luck? It's by patience, by not getting this, in this case, not getting distracted, not taking your eyes off the scene, and just shooting and getting those shots. So this one this one is similar to one of the images I mentioned above, where it was observation, because there's a lot of stuff happening on the dance floor. So this is not the only scene that was going on. There's a lot of different things happening, but these guys, without warning, like, they don't tell you they're going to do this. Without warning, they come up, and the couple's right there. They start doing their thing. So I wanted to get, the couple, and obviously the bar staff doing this, and how do we get them both in the same frame, go to the other side, and he's doing his juggling, wait for the moment where there's a little bit of a gap. You might have to shoot a little extra and get the shot just as the bottles are coming down. Because I had some where there was one is not in frame, the other one is, here and there. So this was, again, a little bit of patience and a little bit of observation.
Right.
So
Lovely.
we do a lot of shoots on the beach. Everyone loves to take photos on the beach, and with this one, see, this is actually a little bit uncommon, because this was really hot midday sun, and usually couples don't like to go and take pictures in the midday sun, and I think as photographers we mostly, I would say, avoid it. I do actually really enjoy shooting in the sun and playing with harsh light and like shadows and stuff. But again, most couples, like, after a few minutes in the sun, they'll be like, you know what, I've had enough. I don't want to shoot with you, and they'll go inside. So luckily, it worked out, because these guys didn't have a lot of time. This was the only time they had free before everything else. So they said, okay, let's go to the beach, and let's do some shots. So as they were going down, I saw that flood, and I wanted to put them in a frame. So it's like, I'm as we're going along, I'm observing and I'm adding things little by little in order to get the shot that I want. So first I saw the hut. I thought, okay, maybe there's something interesting there I can work with. I'll get them, like framed in that, like a frame within a frame. Then as they were going down, I noticed this lady selling these colored sarongs and like stuff for people on the beach. And I thought, okay, maybe I can use that. I want to try and get the colors in the picture. Maybe it might look interesting. So let's work with a little bit of trial and error.
That's
And then
a
as
really
they
lively
were coming,
image.
sorry.
That's a lively image in the.
Yeah. So as they were coming into the frame, these three fishermen were passing by. And, obviously someone posing on the beach in the midday sun is going to draw some attention. A couple, like, the hell is wrong with them? So they're walking away. And right at that moment, I see that there's a lot of crows in that area. They're flying in. And it just lined up just right. Obviously, I think I would have preferred if the crow was a little bit further, maybe closer to the couple. But I just had so much fun with this image that I wanted to put it up there, just to show how I was kind of adding little bits and pieces to get that.
Right. I wish we had beaches here in Delhi.
Oh yeah, you're landlocked.
Yeah.
Ah,
Oh,
that's a
wow.
really lovely image.
Is that a double exposure? No, that's
No,
mirror
single
reflection.
exposure.
That's a mirror reflection, right?
Yeah. So actually,
Building your
so
own
first,
luck.
what I noticed was I'll actually go into reflections. I'm actually going to reflections a little bit later, but I was outside on the balcony. The bride had finished getting ready, and I actually told her to stand there. So this is definitely posed. She's not doing that on her own. This is not documentary. They don't magically go and stand there, right? We know that.
Yeah.
We wish they did, but so I told her to stand there, and when I went outside, I actually noticed the trees first. So I thought, okay, that's cool. I'm gonna try and get some of the surrounding landscape into the photo with the bride, and then I saw these birds flying by. So there was actually quite a few, and I was getting a few shots, and I was really excited, and finally I got this one where the crow was flying just up against where she was standing. And if you look, there's a tiny detail. I don't know if it's showing here, but it's carrying a twig in its mouth. So it's off to,
Wow.
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
so he's like, off to build a nest or something.
How many images you took before you reached this one? Like,
I'm pretty sure I had at least 50 images by this point, maybe close to 60, 70.
so the lottery winning thing works.
Yes, the lottery.
We
Yes.
talk about it.
Yeah. Increase your chances.
The more
Increase your chances at playing the lottery. Exactly.
if you want to win a lottery, buy maximum tickets possible.
Yeah. Buy more tickets. Exactly.
Right. So I think we're done with the folder one over here.
Okay, perfect. So
No, there are more. There are more.
Oh, there's more. One more.
There are more.
there's one more, right?
There's two
Okay.
more.
Okay.
That's a beautiful.
So this one, this was again. I'm watching what's the events unfolding. I'm watching the family, and I can see that they're getting ready to pass this on. And I what I really liked was what I love how everyone's hand is touching each other. They're like, it is a metaphor. It's they're all supporting each other basically.
Right.
And for me, it was more meaningful because it's over the bride's head, so like it's almost like they're all supporting each other and they're protecting her. So it was very symbolic for me. And I actually didn't like do a lot of editing on her face. It just happened that her face was in shadow,
Okay.
and the jewelry had a little bit of light from the other side. So I actually didn't have to do a lot to bring that up.
Nice.
despite so many elements, the separation is amazing between each element, all the people, the face. Really nice.
I'll be having lots of questions from you.
Sorry?
I'll be having many questions from you.
Oh, great. I love to answer questions.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah, when people usually see this photo, they think, is the baby okay? But not to worry, that's actually his kid.
Okay.
And yes, the baby's okay. So here I was just watching them.
Okay.
I saw them like swinging the kid up, and he was going higher and higher. And I thought, okay. So I got down low, switched to my ultra wide, but it's a bit cropped, and I just saw him swing up, and even I was surprised, like, wow, that's really high. I hope they're holding on. And I thought, okay, if they're not holding on, I'm right underneath, so I will have to be the one to catch. So I can get the shot and catch the baby. Okay, wow, that's gonna be great.
Their expression seemed that they are surprised as well.
Yeah, I think but he seems surprised that she's going so high.
Very interesting.
So if there are any like specific questions about like getting like the decisive moment, again, I think for me, I think it's down to those four things: patience, being observant, being aware of your surroundings, uh, anticipating the moment, and obviously all of those three things will be easier the more experience you have.
Very good.
So for me, it's about the one thing that I really got into is like building your own luck, getting these sort of images. This one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and this one. Then again, coming to this one,
Yeah.
this one. It's all about having all up so perfect captures at the right moment they've been captured. I just love them all. Love.
Thank you very much. But yeah, as you said, uh, it's there's luck, but then it's about creating your own luck, increasing your chances of getting those shots.
Right. So, okay. So, Ishan, shall we move to the next folder?
Yep.
No? Think, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we are up, Jishan.
Wow.
Okay. So I'll go through this a little bit quicker because I don't want to. I don't know if I'm taking up too much time or what, if I'm like dragging on a bit too much.
We are loving the images though.
So
so you take all the time.
what I wanted to talk about here was, and this is what I use, and this is not every single thing I use, but some of the tools that I use in order to tell a story.
Hmm.
So I obviously, you know, things during getting ready are like the perfect example because you have more time, you're more relaxed, right? So it's easy to it's easier to do something then than do something with the ceremony, right? Because there are so many important moments happening. Obviously, you don't want to miss that.
Hmm.
So during getting ready and prep, you can use that time to try something here and there, and knowing what's going to happen. So this is actually actually this is something I set up in that I didn't tell her to get it, but I put the dress where I know she was going to go and get it from. So it's almost like laying a trap. So I did tell her I was going to put the dress there. I just went and put it there, and then I know she's going to go and look for the dress.
Okay.
And this there's so much clutter and there's so many like things in the room, right? So I don't want to touch any of that stuff. I like having all that stuff around because I like to use whatever's there on that day, like that's around me, because that's unique to that situation, to that wedding. You might never get the exact same thing. So I like to then create frames in order to make a picture a little more interesting. So the first thing that I typically like to look for is using a frame to create a story or to tell a story in creating a picture to make it a little more interesting. So in this instance, um, for me, the sunglasses, meaning it's going to be a hot day, it's going to be sunny, it's tropical weather, and you can see the blue sky. So those things add up. And I set it up so that I knew she was going to go there, and I got the shot that I wanted. Um, so we jump to the next image. So this is also something that I posed. This was a pre-wedding shoot in London, and I saw this sign over there. So I told them to wait there and cross the road after a couple of minutes. And I was passing by, and I knew that I wanted to get this frame of them being framed in a car, in the window of a car. And with the traffic sign, look the two-way traffic look both ways. So I wanted them to look both ways, and I wanted the car in there. So the frame telling us that there is a car there and there is traffic and the sign. So I wanted all of that to add to it in order to tell that story. So if we jump to the next one, so here you have the bride coming in to see the groom. So they're going to have their first look. They're going to see each other for the first time. So sometimes they'll see each other for the first time at the ceremony, but sometimes they'll see each other before the ceremony because they want to take some pictures together. So here the bride is coming in, and I just wanted to show that she's far away and she's coming in, shooting through the groom's legs, just to show that. In hindsight, I can always look at an image. I think as photographers, we do that and see how I could have improved it. So now looking at this image, I think, God, I should have gone at f11 or something, right? Or I should have moved a little bit more to this side so I get a little less of the black on the left.
Right.
So there's always things that you see that you can improve in an image when you look back at it. But
Is this the first?
This is an example of using frames to tell a story. So this is these guys were dancing, and this was just me wanting to capture this guy's hands. He was waving his hands in the air and just framing that groom because I wanted to use his hands to just draw attention to the groom. Like at this finished the haldi, they've ripped his shirt, they've ripped all his clothes off, and he's enjoying himself. He's partying. So the hands creating the frame, and hands always draw the eye. Like there's a lot of attention when you see a pair of human hands. So I like that his hands are framing the groom.
You frames into frames, you really love them. Frames within frames, like frames within frames, you really love it, right?
I love it. Yeah. It's not something that I would say. It's not to everyone's taste, obviously, but I like it because I'm thinking, okay, I have this scene that's happening. How would I want to use it to make it a little more interesting? And I would say I'm always, the struggle that I have, and I think everyone has, is I'm always striving to use the tool to tell a story. So like when we use a reflection, not using a reflection just for the sake of it. Because I have so many of those shots that we use a reflection, it looks pretty, but then one thing Lanny and Eric always said was, think about why you're using that reflection in the first place. There has to be a purpose behind it.
Right. So
So I
what?
was down on the stage. I was down, and this, the mandap is up here, and I just liked that there were four people, and then there were four squares, and they just fit nicely into that. So that was pretty much it here. But it was actually just not much of a story there beyond all of them looking at the. I think this was her. It was on the left, but
That's a really interesting
they
composition.
just fit nicely in there.
That's a really nice image. Well,
Really,
I
really
once
interesting
thought
composition.
ki it's not in stage and you actually gone totally low. Just
Yeah,
in
so
the
I'm actually down, like I'm actually standing down, and the stage is about like chest height,
yeah.
like that. So I'm like just down there under the chair.
Next image.
This one obviously is completely staged, and the thing is, like, when I'm staging them, I'm just telling them stand here, and they're moving around. So I'm not even telling her to look this way and that way, but he's looking at her, and I knew I wanted to get him, his look and everything, the groom looking all nice, and then her in it as well. So I think so that's frames. And the other thing, obviously, the most obvious storytelling tool is layering, as you know.
Hmm.
And I think that is fairly self-explanatory. So again, over here, things like speech happening. At first, we're shooting the guy who's talking, and we want to get the crowd. So come back and go all the way around and get the crowd at the at the right moment.
How much of seeing these images, I wonder how much of like post processing do you do?
So my I would say my post processing skills need a lot of work.
Okay.
So because of that, I mean, obviously, I need to work on it. I need to improve it. But because of that, I try to do as much as possible I can in camera.
Right.
But like right here, I am actually lighting the couple.
Huh.
So you'll see there's a bit of a difference between the couple and
The rest of the
the rest
people.
of the crowd. So I am actually lighting the couple from the right. You won't see he's out of frame because I want the attention drawn to them. So in most cases, I'm just pretty much just bringing down some highlights, bringing up some shadows.
That's it.
So bringing down some highlights in the sky, maybe make it um, a little bit more bluer. When it comes to things like the wedding dress and details,
Hmm.
and that's something I agree with the two mans, is that I prefer to try and it in such a way that it's not an inanimate object. But the thing is, I do like taking pictures of, like, if it's just there, taking it. I like for me, I really like the detail and the lace. Like it was very delicate, this dress.
Hmm.
So I wanted to show the dress, and obviously I have a lot more shots of the bride in the dress, but I wanted to show the getting the scene as well, the getting ready. So I'm like that, and I'm taking the shot with one hand.
Oh, okay.
So that's my frame.
That's a lovely image.
So the layering here is um, it's pretty much just the crowd, and I'm using a light from the left to light up the couple who uh, I actually put this one in because I like they actually just on one side. It looks like they're separated from the rest of the crowd, but they're actually like
I,
very close to
I
them.
thought they're getting reflected in some
Huh,
way.
even I thought it's a way of reflection, but
It
no,
yeah. It seems
it
like a
cannot be a
reflection,
reflection
right?
because they are facing them the same direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where they are is completely dark. If it wasn't for the light.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So the next one is, so the over here, what I like is that at this moment, the in the layering you will see obviously the couple. On the sides you're seeing the parents from both sides. They're watching what's happening, and both for me, like all parents, especially the mothers, they have a very sort of endearing, like loving look on their faces. I really like that. And then way at the back, if you look in the middle where the lights are, you'll see the guest photographers, the crowd, and I think one of my students is in there as well. Like, so this is the bride being brought back to to the ceremony after she changes into the sari that's given from the groom's side. And the two girls were basically waiting for. They were like the guards. They were not letting anyone pass. So they're telling the people waiting, okay, it's that's what it seems like. But they were actually stopping other people from coming in. They were like, no, you can't come in. So they're letting them go. So. And that's the final one for layering. I like this one. I picked this one because all of the crowd were raising their hands I think, as a symbol in solidarity with the couple. And then there were people taking photos. And there was this cake topper that was a couple dancing. This is the father-daughter dance. And I like the frame that was created and the crowd on the side. So I like to sort of use that crowd to draw in the eye because everyone's focused on the same thing.
It's again a frame within a frame.
I really loved how you are actually documenting the entire stuff. It's not just just the two of the subjects. I think it's the bride and bride's dad, I believe.
The bride's dad, yeah.
And the cake topper and the crowd again.
The crowd, yeah. And I actually like when there are other details, like you said, in there. Like I like that my photographer is in there. Like I don't have a problem with it because that is the truth. What I want them to see is like there's this grand event happening, and the photographer is there. The band is there in the background. They're playing, and the crowd is there. Everyone's involved, and it's a part of it. There's no one who is kind of distracted and looking away from it. Everyone's focused on this moment.
Right.
I have a question. So I saw in many of your images, I can see the photographer or the lens on the side or somewhere. Has ever any couple of yours told you that we don't like this there, we don't like your team member there or an element there? Has it ever happened?
Sorry, have they said they don't like what?
They don't like that there's a photographer or a camera or an element in the image.
I haven't actually had that. I haven't had anyone say that. But there are times when, like, I do want to give them options where there's no photographers in there. So, like, that's not I would make sure that's not the only image I give them, or like the only type of image from that setting. So I will actually give images from that same dance scene where the father and daughter are more isolated.
All right.
But like if they ask, I have to make them understand. Like for this particular shot, there's no way I could remove. I mean, there's no way I could avoid the photographer. Obviously, I could take him out in post processing.
Right.
But I haven't actually had anyone complain about that.
Oh, all right.
Moving on to the perspectives.
Yeah, moving on. The other tool I think is useful in storytelling is perspective. So changing your angle, shooting from above, shooting from below, going far, getting close. So over here, I wanted to get the not only the groom, but I wanted to get the rest of the procession.
Hmm.
Now I knew that if I shot it from front, I'm gonna get the procession, but I'm not gonna get details of everything that's happening, like what they're bringing.
Mhm.
So I saw the balcony, and I knew, okay, when they're coming in, I want to get this shot. I want to get everything that's happening. And uh, for me, I like that the person right at the end has a phone, and he's like, he's on the phone. So it's like a testament to modern times. So you have all this traditional stuff going on, and then this guy's on the phone. So it's like it's a tiny detail, but I like those things.
I really loved how you create a distinct image with so much of neatness in it. Whether it was in frames and frames, and layering, it was so neat. You know, with a distinctive image, yet it's so neat that I am really liking it.
Thank you. I mean, that's actually funny you should say that, because I feel like my images could be neater because I feel like I tend to go in the direction of like layering. Like sometimes I feel like I get a little bit carried away, and I might be layering too much. I might be telling too much information in one photo. Maybe it's too distracting for people when they look at it. So I mean, if you feel that it's neat, that's actually great. I enjoy that.
By neatness, I also mean, like let's say the perspective is actually, there's a symmetry in terms of the chairs kept on the side, and whether there was a speech going on in the image that was taken on the beach.
Yeah.
Just see the perspective. It's as if like a statue is standing over here, and the crowd is gathered. There's so much neatness, like in terms of negative spacing that you carried. This is something I really loved.
I actually do love symmetry. So there's that. There's definitely, you will see that in the picture. That comes from a little bit of inspiration in film as well. Obviously, like the king of symmetry.
Hmm.
So inspired by stuff like that. So here I shot from above because I wanted to show this hotel. You'll see this in the next image as well. So this is a very famous, well-known hotel in Sri Lanka where this famous architect called Jeffrey Bawa, he's like well loved and adored all over the island, and he built this hotel to be intertwined with nature,
All right.
so everyone loves it. And I wanted to show the trees on the left and the stairs in the hotel on the right. And this is all down. This is actually afterwards. The next shot, if you go to the next one, is actually before. So this is the bride coming up to the ceremony. And traditionally in the Sri Lankan ceremony, the Poro ceremony, these Kandyan dancers, these upcountry dancers, lead the procession. So they're leading the bride, escorting the bride to the ceremony. So in the background, details of where we are. There's a reservoir. There's usually lots of wildlife, and this hotel is so beautiful that it's easy to be inspired when you're there. And every time I look at the staircase, I know I like to see, you know, someone like the procession. I want to see something happening.
Yeah, I wish if something like this was supposed to happen in Delhi, then it would have been chaotic.
Shashank, you're
Like,
dreaming too much.
I think all four,
Really dreaming.
like all six of them would have been on the same staircase instead of being on a
Yeah,
separate one.
yeah.
Because this happens over here a lot. Or I
And there
don't
would
know.
be 100 guests with the
There
bride.
would be actually. So what happened was, now in this for these ceremonies, the groom goes first. So the groom is at the ceremony. It's actually the hotel that's working in our advantage here. It's
Hmm.
not the easiest thing to get to, so everyone has to go there first.
Hmm.
So the guests, anyway, it's not a big crowd, but the guests have already gone, and now they're waiting for the bride. So the bride's coming in.
How
So the only
you
people with
what
the bride are the bridesmaids and maybe the bride's immediate family.
and you already
Okay.
mentioned that there's a like maximum gathering of around 200 250 people over there at an event. So that's quite controllable.
And I mean, are you guys like dealing with like a lot of other photographers and stuff, like possibly being in the frame as well?
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes, yes. Not sometimes, plenty of times.
So changing perspective, um, I like to go down low as well. So here, getting that little bit of detail on the envelope, the message from the bride telling him that he's the luckiest guy,
Hmm.
and the very sort of he had this very sort of somber, serious expression on his face because I think he was feeling very emotional as well. I think in hindsight, I wish I got his right eye as well, but um, for me, it was about getting that detail, and you can tell that story like you can see this was a letter from the bride.
I love
Um,
your black and white processing as well. The toning of what I'm seeing, the black and
The
white is amazing.
toning, the grains,
Yes, the
everything.
grains as well.
thank you. So in this one also, this one,
Yeah. Pardon, sorry.
sorry, the next one, sorry, yeah. So this one I'm a little bit fond of more than anyone else. I'm fond of this image because even though I didn't include it in this, I love to get shadows. And
Hmm.
so this was actually shot from down low because the from the sunlight bouncing off the tiles. It was that bright. It was that hot.
Oh, okay.
So you can see the shadow of the groom on the ceiling,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
and um, that was because it was that bright. Like you would need a very very sort of highly reflective surface to get, I think, that much light bouncing on and creating that shadow.
Exactly.
Like
Like on the ceiling.
that's on the ceiling, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's stepping out into, so this is in Dubai. So he's stepping out into the daylight, and then that's how bright it is that at that moment. Um, so the other thing that I like to use um, is reflections. And this, okay, so to be honest, in this one, I'm not really telling, it's not that much of a story as much as I'm using a bit of distraction below.
It's a foreground,
So,
right?
sorry,
It's a foreground. You.
I'm cutting out the foreground. I'm cutting it out quite a bit because
Hmm.
there's a lot of clutter. So I'm getting them to stand there, and this is a single exposure. So um, after a while, like experimenting with light and understanding how, like, once you know how exposures work, you can use the effect of a prism to your advantage, where the darker parts of the image will be what uh, the shadow parts is
Shadow
what
parts.
translates with which projects something behind, right? You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So in here, like if this is the camera, the prism is pretty much like covering almost the entire,
Right.
but I'm using it to cover the background, and I'm using it to reflect tree, coconut tree leaves.
Okay. Interesting.
But if you go to the next one, that's a better example of actual storytelling, because this is just the bride after having gotten ready, and I wanted to show what the day was like outside. So what time it was? It was early in the morning, so it's still blue. The light is blue. It hasn't, the sun hasn't properly come up. You can see the house, like this, beautiful garden and this tree. So I wanted to get all of that in the frame. So I really like using reflections to be able to show that in one frame. So I'm showing the right and I'm showing where.
moving on to the next image.
And if you look at it, yeah, this one, it's kind of the same thing. But this is actually in the evening, and this is more of a just visually pleasing in terms of contrast of colors, because you have the red yellow on the bride contrasting with the blue in the fading light on the day, and you can see a little bit of the surrounding landscape where she's coming into. So this one is actually uh, I hung the dress, and I was getting some pictures of the dress, and this is actually that same hotel. This is the same bride, the one with the cool architecture, and I noticed outside that the reflection of what was there was coming through. So the bride was with the bridesmaids. They were having a glass, and I wanted her to come outside and continue what she was doing. So I wanted to get the dress, the entirety of the dress, and her in it. And she's just with her bridesmaid. She's drinking wine, so they're not visible in the frame.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the moments where I got to see the bride getting ready and brushing her teeth, which is usually I'm getting shots of the groom like this. So the bride was a really good sport. She was like, that's fine. You can be there. You can take pictures of me brushing my teeth, and so going down. So for me, this is actually I feel like I wanted to show where for me a reflection kind of failed. For me, some people might like it. So I got this as a reflection because I thought so I've turned it upside down.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it would be interesting. Maybe I could use the reflection to get the top of the how beautiful that church was. But then later on, I realized that this actually looks like a ghost. So I thought, okay, you know what? This is a bit creepy. So the reflection, it didn't really work for me. But I wanted to show you how sometimes it fails. It doesn't always work.
So we are done with this segment also over here. This is now we'll be moving on to the gear section.
Okay, that was it, right? Okay, great. So in gear, if you there's only
We
one
have
picture.
to
I'm just
just
going to show
wait for a
you.
second.
There's one picture in there.
We'll have to just wait for a second. I'll just set up.
Okay, so until then, I'll just talk a little bit about preparation and how I get ready for a wedding. That's the other thing I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
So while before, I would say what I used to do was I used to look at a lot of pictures before I go to a wedding, and I realized that it's good to be inspired, but at the same time, it can really sort of get really cloudy in there, and it can sort of cloud your judgment. It can be a little bit overwhelming. So right now, the way I prepare is 24 hours before the wedding. I don't think about it at all. I what I do is I relax completely. I will maybe use inspiration, but in a different form. So I love getting inspiration from film. So I'll watch I'll watch a movie that I've been really wanting to. There's some movie. There's like a list of movies I have that I want to watch. Like maybe there's really interesting use of color. There's like a lot of different techniques. So I'll do something like that instead of looking at photos and getting inspired, because for me that works better.
Can you tell us
Because I want to go in with a clear mind, and if I have something that I think I want to use, it's there, at the back of my mind. It's there in my subconscious. And Now, looking at the gear, this is pretty much what I like to have on the day, and I like to be as light as possible. So I am usually shooting quite wide on one. So I'm on the one on the left, I'm on 1635, and on the one on the right, I'm on 85. And I will prefer to only have two flashes with me, and then monopod, and that's pretty much it. So everything else that's there, if that they were using extra lights, whatever it is with my other shooter or my system. So the main thing that I wanted to show was I prefer mobility over anything else. In fact, I'm actually considering dropping the 1635 for most of the day and just going back to like just primes like I used to be, and maybe pulling it out again if I need to. Because I found that being mobile, being light, and being able to keep going longer was a lot more important than anything else. Like I used to, when I started out, I used to have every single lens possibly in the bag. Like I might use the macro, I might use this, I might use the tilt shift. I never used half of that stuff. So I felt so much more free when I got rid of all of that, and I didn't do any preparation. And if sometimes I get sometimes if I'm down with the cold and I get sick, I shoot even better because I'm even less distracted. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm thinking about something else. So your subconscious kicked in, like all the stuff you've learned, all your experiences, like hey, this looks cool, this might be interesting. All of that stuff kicks in and it just works.
Right. So,
So,
Shan, thanks for the session. We got lots of questions over here.
yeah, I'd
I
love to answer if
I
you
have a
guys have
question
time.
first before we
Yeah.
go for those. If you can tell us a couple of films that inspired you, because you were saying that you get inspired by films. If you could name a few.
Okay. So there is a film called In the Mood for Love by I think the director is Wong Kar Wai. I'll send you the list as well.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. So it's that film is just has beautiful use of color, cinematography. It's one of the most, I think, very heavily studied film in film school as well, as far as I know. And just everything from the way they use sound is just absolutely beautiful. Probably my probably my favorite, be like in the top one or two.
Wow.
I would say Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo.
Okay.
That's definitely good. Um, that also has good use of color. Um, those are the ones that really stand out. The others are not coming to me right now, but I'll send you some because I actually have a list and I go through them. So I mean, I rewatch all these movies. I would say anything from Wes Anderson is a lot of fun to watch, just because there's so much use of like different color palettes. Like if you look at what was it, the Grand Budapest Hotel, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You look at the color palette used there, like the way he uses the soft, muted tones in that. Like he uses that as a theme throughout. And then there's sometimes when he will use certain colors to represent certain people, like how they'll use like maybe they'll use red to represent someone who's bad, like that kind of thing. Like it's just so much fun to watch, and there's so much symmetry. And as I said, I'm such a huge fan of symmetry, and I'm a fan of when it not works as well. So I would say anything from Wes Anderson is good.
Interesting. I'll ping you for the list.
Yes.
Wonderful. So, okay, Jishan, starting with, shall we start with the Q&A session, or you need a 2-minute break?
No, I think I'm okay. I have some water here. Let me just.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good to go.
Yeah. Okay. The question number 1: how can one try to become a documentary wedding photographer?
Sorry, can you say that a bit louder?
How can one try to become a documentary wedding photographer?
How can one try to become a documentary wedding photographer? Well, first, I would say, in a way, okay, in a way, we are all documentary wedding photographers. We are documenting what's happening. But on one hand, documentary wedding photography is, I mean, you have to show what you want to shoot, right? To start with, that can be tough because you might think you're in this cycle where, I don't have enough documentary stuff. But if I don't have enough documentary stuff, how do I get to shoot more without having more to show, right? So you feel like you're stuck in that cycle. But I would say the best thing is if you can partner up with someone, and because ultimately you have, no matter what, you have to make sure the important moments are captured for the couple.
Right.
Like, no matter what kind of photography you do, you're hired for,
Mm.
getting those moments, and whatever you agree with them getting what they want. Then I think you can focus on trying to take a step back, take a moment to observe, see what's happening, because there's more that's happening than just that in front of you. There's a lot of different things happening, and learn how to look for those moments, and you start capturing them, and then show that. And then once you show that, you will say, oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't know this was happening. Like, the bride will say, oh wow, I didn't know this happened. Like, I'm this is something that I completely missed. So you're telling a story that they have never seen, and they missed completely, but they're getting to experience because you are telling the story of their day through your pictures, and you're letting them relive that, and moments that they didn't experience. So not reliving it, but experiencing for the first time.
Okay. The second question, how do you sell your ideas to the clients if they are asking more of stage things or pre-planned stuff or something apart from journalism? How do you sell it to them?
Well, I'm first thing is I'm very, very clear right from the start. I tell them I'm very clear and very transparent, and say this is what I do, this is how I will shoot it. So I think that more than anything, I've found that communication is important and needs to happen. So, like, you need to make the client aware, and I will tell them this is my style of shooting. This is how I will shoot. The moments will be candid, and I will assure them. And usually the worries that they will say, I want to get family pictures as well, and you say, no, that's fine. We will dedicate a time to getting those, like,
Mm.
nice family photos, but pretty much everything else is going to be a story.
So do your clients also send you reference pictures? Yeah, I want something like this. I want something like this.
I do get sometimes get pictures from clients saying, I would like something like this. Um, Most of the time, I would say when they do that, they send me my own. And if they don't, what I tell them is, why don't you look through and tell me which of my own pictures you like? Because within my own set, they might have some preferences. Like, I had a couple who really loved double exposures,
Mm.
and I only knew that because I asked them, and I said, what particularly do you like? And she said, I would love if you could do some double exposures as well. So, I did that for them. So, if someone shows me something, I'm very clear in making them understand that now this is another photographer's work. I'm not going to do the same thing, but I can use it as an inspiration.
Mm. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question that we had was, what all did you do to become the premium brand in Sri Lanka?
I I think I was, as I mentioned in my first story, the main thing is I didn't want to compromise on my style. I didn't want to compromise on what I wanted to do and what I wanted to show. So I pursued that relentlessly. Like, I said, this is what I'm going to do. This is my niche. This is, documentary and storytelling. This is how I want to show it. And I just pursued that relentlessly in saying this is what I do, and making and just showing that this is how I differentiate myself from other photographers. So in doing so, people just started to see that, the first thing that they always said was, hey, you're doing something different. I like, when couples approach me, they said, hey, I really like your work. It's very different from the rest. So I kept seeing that word coming up all the time, and that, it was not what they were used to seeing. I was giving them something else. I think just that had just gotten me to a point where they started to know that if you wanted something different done, if you wanted something uh, that's different kind of photography to what's available right now in the market, then go to this guy.
Oh, so you differentiated yourself with your work.
Yes, and know what your I think I actually saw. I can't remember who mentioned this in one of his talks with you guys. He mentioned your USP. What's your unique selling point, right? I strongly agree with that. Find out your strength, whatever your strength is, and enhance that strength.
Okay, so the next question that we have is, since we saw that you take a lot of go near, go far, and you keep running a lot between your shots. So do you involve yourself in any kind of exercises as well? Any kind of other physical activity or exercise?
Yes, I actually, as photographers in general, I would say it really helps to keep fit. I think, and pretty much what's funny is, every photographer that I talk to, they have some kind of activity they're doing. So I like to run. I was actually inspired by my wife. She started running before me, so she inspired me. And then I've seen, and there are other photographers I know who are like running 40, 50K, and I'm like, wow. But it just helps to stay fit because, like, as you say, you're moving around all the time. You're on your feet for like 14 hours a day, right? And you're lifting cameras. You're they're not they may not be that improved. Our cameras have become lighter, not like back when we were doing like 5D Mark II with 7200 and a flash on top. I mean, that was like a brick, right?
Yeah.
So not like that bad. You used to get back pain. Things like having the money maker helps because you're balancing the weight more evenly. But it's just after a while, even the lightest camera can be heavy. So just general fitness, running, going to the gym, just doing that really helped. Oh, one thing that's really important that helped me is, now when I used to go to weddings at the start, I used to eat the food that was there, and wedding food is always rich food. Uh, and you would believe how much weight I gained. I think my face ballooned. Like I actually stopped eating at weddings because the food is so rich, it's not sustainable with how many weddings we do as photographers. That's something I think people don't realize.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how do you make good selection for awards?
That is a little bit of a tough one because it kind of depends on the award as well. I would say the thing is, ultimately, awards are still all subjective. We obviously do them because we're trying to we're trying to improve ourselves. It's a great way to push ourselves to become better, um, and work on our craft. But in terms of selection, I would say first look at the competition you're entering. Obviously, like if you're entering into like reportage, it's only documentary shots that will get picked. And then when you're specifically do those documentary shots, tell a story. What is the story that it tells? So all those things have to be looked at. So when you're doing selection, I would say first thing is look at the competition you're selecting for, when you're making selections. In general, things can fall into a couple of categories. Is it has to tell a good story. If it's not telling a good story and it looks pretty because photographs are pretty and it's beautiful, it has to be just beyond beautiful, because sometimes in some, like say in Fearless, for example, right? uh, if it's not a storytelling image, there's stuff that falls into, like say, the category realm of artistic and beauty. And the stuff that gets selected for that, like it has to be, sometimes an image is just beautiful, there's nothing else to it. It can be staged, but it's just beautiful to look at. So it has to really jump out, it has to really stand out, and that also will come with experience. But I would say the biggest help that I had is talk to your peers. Talk to your friends and say, hey, what do you think of this image, and have a discussion, because they will see things that you haven't about that image. Like sometimes I'll be so in love with a photo that I won't see the flaw in that image unless someone points it out to me.
Okay. Uh,
Okay.
any tips for shooting in harsh sunlight situations?
Um, if it's something like shooting a ceremony in harsh sunlight, I mean, okay, if it's a couple shoot in harsh sunlight, I would say, you have the advantage because you can control exactly what they do. You can put them in shadow to make it a silhouette, or you can put them in the harsh sunlight and make them face the light to, use it as a highlight to isolate them, light them up. But obviously, if it's a ceremony and you're not in control of the situation, it's a little bit tricky. One thing is the cameras that we have help because the dynamic range is so good now on stuff like the Sony's. It's just unbelievable. But you can actually use things like tools like flashes, um, reflectors. I would say it's a bit difficult because to hold it. But like if a ceremony is happening, and you can put a flash on an off-camera flash on a light stand, they're not going to move from that ceremony spot. So you can keep that there for like 20-30 minutes, keep it on full power, keep full batteries, and you can use that to at least counter the sunlight a little bit.
Hmm. Agree. Fiam.
Okay, so now we have the last question. It's what is your light setup for first dance or the dance floor?
This question is
Really
by
first
Divyam,
dance.
I think. By Divyam Chopra is asking this question.
Okay, there. The light setup for the first dance. First, I see what the dance floor is gonna look like. So I'll maybe check with the DJs and the guys who are running the lights and see what they're gonna use because they. I mean, one thing I didn't do before was talk to them and communicate with them because sometimes they'll end up using lights that maybe instead they'll use like an ugly green, like they don't know, right? They might use something that's really bad, and we talk to them a little bit, and we do a quick test, so that really helps. Like once if there's a nice backlight, then I know that I want to light the couple from the front because there's already a backlight giving them like a rim light, and there's a nice effect that helps isolate them. If I know that his lights are a little bit different and there's no backlight, I might actually put another flash behind to make the couple pop. So typically, I'll have one light on the couple to light them up, and then one behind to backlight them. That's just one standard setup, but obviously it changes depending on the situation. But I have that one tool to go to start with.
Interesting.
Jishan, just wondering, there's a small Copico model at the back. Is that yours?
This,
Yeah. Is that
yeah,
you?
yes. So my hair is usually short, right? It's I'm stuck in quarantine, so the hair is long. So this is something that a couple sent as a gift. So they
That's
did
so
a bobblehead,
nice.
so you can see he has a camera and a little bag.
Bag.
Nice.
That's so nice.
Yeah, so I kept that there. You have a good eye. I didn't realize that you saw that. So this, yeah, you're probably a really good photographer. You've seen all these eye for
I
details.
wish I was.
Yeah.
All right. So glad we had you over here. Just loved your work, loved your images, and
Yeah. It was a really nice session, Jishan. Thank you so
Uh,
much for your
Thank
time.
you, guys. It was an honor to be here. I'm really excited that when Divyam told me about this platform, and you guys are doing something amazing for the photography community, especially at a time like this when we can be distracted by a little bit of shop talk and inspiration and that sort of thing. It's I think you guys are doing something great, and I'm really happy to be a part of it.
thank you, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. So,
And
yeah, you're saying something.
yeah, so again, if there are any like follow-up questions or anyone else, just feel free to message me because I can talk endlessly. So and if you send me a question, I'll talk about it. Anyone.
Perfect. Perfect.
Per-
Thank you so much.
Perfect. So I think we'll wind up this session
Great.
for right now. And next we are going to have a session at 8 p.m. So that's for all the freelancers who are listening to us. We will be having Ronak from Recall Pictures. He'll be at 8 p.m. with his creative ideas to help us get through these times. So we'll catch you all at 8 today.
Guys, don't miss that one out. It's gonna be super
I'm sure it'll be
interesting.
epic.
Geeshan, you also please be there to attend.
8 p.m. IST.
Yeah.
I'll watch that.
Yeah.
Alright, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Adios.
guys.
See ya. Good
We'll
night.
be back soon.